Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The school hallway was alive with the usual hubbub, students rushing to catch their next class, lockers slamming shut, and laughter echoing. Amidst this commotion, Emily moved slowly forward, leaning on her crutches. Her left leg was still fragile after a recent accident, and each step required painful concentration. Her eyes, slightly red from fighting back tears, stared at the floor, trying to ignore the whispers and curious glances. Suddenly, behind her, a tall, muscular boy of the same age approached with a mocking smile. His name was Jason, known for his cruel pranks and boundless arrogance. Without warning, he slashed Emily's crutch. She lurched forward, her hands desperately trying to break her fall, but it was no use. Her crutches slid across the glistening tiles, and she fell heavily to the floor, breathless, her face burning with shame. Mocking laughter erupted around her. Jason's classmates were giggling, some filming the scene with their phones. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, humiliation, anger, frustration, it was all mixed together. She wanted to disappear forever from this corridor where every glance seemed to judge her. But as her body still trembled on the ground, a deep, calm voice rang out above the tumult, "That's enough." All eyes turned. A tall, yet serene figure stepped forward. A new student, or perhaps a young and mysterious professor, no one really knew. But his gaze, direct and uncompromising, fixed on Jason with an intensity no one had ever seen before. What happened next shook the entire corridor. Jason hadn't expected this reaction, and Emily felt, for the first time since her fall, that she wasn't alone. This simple gesture would change everything, for Jason, for Emily, and for all those who thought they knew power and vulnerability. Emily struggled to her feet, leaning on her crutches, still shaken by her fall. Her heart pounded, a mixture of anger and shame. The students around her whispered, some mocking her, others watching her with timid concern. She wanted to disappear, but her fragile legs reminded her of reality. Jason, still standing, frowned at the figure who had just stepped forward. It was Marcus, a new student at the high school, tall, well-built, and strangely calm. He had a piercing gaze that seemed to analyze everything around him in a fraction of a second. The murmurs began, "Who is he? He never lets anyone push him around." "You think that's funny?" Marcus said, his voice low but authoritative. Jason felt thrown off balance. No one had ever dared to put him in his place like that. He opened his mouth to reply, but no words came out. Emily, still on the ground, felt a mixture of apprehension and hope. She had never seen anyone defend a stranger with such calm and determination. Marcus crouched down beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked sincerely. Emily nodded shyly, the tears she was holding back threatening to fall. Jason stepped back, humiliated, as Marcus reached out to Emily to help her up. The gesture was simple, but for her, it symbolized something greater, the beginning of a change, the first step towards a strength she didn't know she possessed. As she leaned on him to pull herself up, Emily felt a strange warmth in her chest, a mixture of gratitude and determination. This fall wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And for Jason, this simple act would trigger a series of events he could never have imagined. The next day, Emily arrived at school with a mixture of nervousness and determination. Yesterday's fall had been the talk of the town, but contrary to what she had feared, she no longer felt only shame. She felt a new strength, a desire to show that she wasn't weak. Marcus was waiting for her by her locker, a slight smile on his lips. "Hi," he said simply. "Ready for today?" Emily nodded. "Yes, thank you again for yesterday." Marcus shook his head. "It's nothing. But you should be ready. Some people don't take kindly to being put in their place." Indeed, Jason didn't seem to be getting over the humiliation. During gym class, he kept giving Emily disdainful looks. Then, at break time, he tried to intimidate her again, a light tap on her crutch, a sarcastic comment, a mocking sneer. But this time, Emily wasn't alone. Before she could react, Marcus intervened again, but this time with a different strategy. Rather than confronting Jason directly, he spoke to him calmly, with a natural authority that left Jason speechless. Do you really want to keep humiliating people to feel powerful? It doesn't make you strong, it makes you look ridiculous. The words hit harder than any fall. Jason felt anger and humiliation mingling in his chest, but he had no argument. The other students began to look at him differently. For the first time, he felt vulnerable. Emily, observing the scene, realized something important: she didn't need to fear her bullies. With the support of someone righteous and her own determination, she could regain control. Returning home that evening, she thought back to the fall, the laughter, and the fear. But instead of feeling broken, she felt a new energy. She knew her life would never be the same again. That day, a simple blow to a crutch had triggered an invisible but irreversible change. Emily had begun to transform, and no one, not even Jason, could stop her. The following days were intense for Emily. Every step in the school hallways was a small challenge, but she was beginning to feel more confident. She was no longer just the girl who had fallen the day before, she was becoming the one who refused to be intimidated. Jason, for his part, hadn't gotten over his humiliation. He watched her constantly, ready to provoke her. But with each attempt, Emily stood tall, shoulders firm, her gaze defiant. She had understood something: fear disappears when you refuse to feed it. During English class, Emily timidly raised her hand to read a passage aloud. Her voice trembled at first, but she continued, determined not to back down. Her classmates listened attentively, some with surprise, others with admiration. Marcus, sitting behind her, gave her a small thumbs up. This simple gesture boosted her confidence. During break, Jason tried another attack. He dropped his bag near her, hoping to provoke an incident. Emily remained calm. She gathered her belongings without a word, her eyes meeting Jason's with a firmness he had never seen before. The students around her began to murmur, "She really doesn't take it lying down." That was the moment Emily realized something had changed within her. The fall, the fear, the humiliation, all of it had been a catalyst. She now felt an inner strength she had never known before. Later, on her way home, she thought about Marcus. His intervention hadn't just protected her body, it had awakened her courage. Emily understood that true power didn't come from physical strength, but from self-confidence and the determination to no longer be dominated. Jason, meanwhile, was beginning to feel the consequences of his arrogance. Every attempt to intimidate him failed, and he was starting to lose the respect of others. Emily knew this was only the beginning. True revenge would not come through violence, but through her own transformation. The following Monday, Emily walked into school with a determined look. She had spent the entire weekend reflecting and decided that her life would no longer be dictated by fear or bullies like Jason. Every step she took on her crutches was now a symbol of strength, not weakness. In the cafeteria, Jason tried another provocation. He approached Emily with a mocking smile, ready to make her fall again. But this time, she showed no hesitation. Her eyes met his with an intensity that unsettled him. "Let go of me," she said calmly but firmly. Silence fell around them. The students watched the scene, surprised to see Emily speak with such confidence. Jason, taken aback, stepped back slightly. No one had expected the girl he had humiliated the day before to dare confront him like this. Later that day, Marcus came to see her. "You're handling it very well," he said. "But don't forget, strength also comes from knowing how to prepare." Emily nodded. She decided to turn her vulnerability into an asset. She began training at home, strengthening her leg and working on her balance. Each small victory, each mastered step, gave her more confidence. She realized she no longer depended on the protection of others to feel safe. The next day, during gym class, Jason tried to intimidate her once again. This time, Emily was ready. She dodged his blow, remained standing, and displayed a calm smile that gave Jason pause. The other students began to applaud her quietly. For the first time, Emily felt she was in control. That day, she understood a crucial truth: true power lies not in strength or cruelty, but in the ability to stand tall, even in the face of adversity. Emily now knew she could overcome any obstacle, and that Jason, with all his pride, could never intimidate her the way he used to. A few weeks had passed since the infamous fall. Emily was no longer the same shy and fearful girl. Every day, she moved forward with confidence on her crutches, and her attitude was beginning to influence those around her. During break time, several students would now approach her, intrigued by her strength and composure. Some asked her how she managed to remain so brave in the face of Jason and the other bullies. Emily simply replied, "Fear disappears when you refuse to feed it." Jason, seeing that he was losing his influence over others, became increasingly isolated. His provocations consistently failed, and the students began to avoid him. Emily then understood that her transformation wasn't just about her own life, it could also help others to stand up for themselves and find their own strength. One day, after school, a younger boy, who had been mocked by Jason for a long time, approached Emily timidly. "How do you manage not to be afraid?" he asked. Emily knelt slightly to get down to her level. "You know, fear is normal," she said softly. "But what matters is choosing to be stronger than it. Even if you fall, you can always get back up." This simple piece of advice had an immediate effect. Inspired by her courage, the boy began to face his bullies with more confidence. Emily felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that by standing up for herself, she had given others the strength to stand up too. Marcus, observing the scene from afar, approached and said, "You're becoming a true leader, Emily. You're not only saving your own dignity, you're inspiring others to do the same." Emily smiled. She knew the road ahead would be long, but for the first time since her accident, she felt invincible. The fall on her crutches hadn't just marked the beginning of her transformation, it had sparked a wave of courage that would sweep through the entire school. The high school buzzed with excitement and curiosity. Everyone knew Emily had changed. Even Jason, who continued to brood over his humiliation, felt that power had definitively left his hands. One afternoon, during history class, Jason couldn't contain his anger and tried to provoke Emily again, this time in front of the whole class. He dropped a book next to her with a sarcastic sneer, hoping to attract attention and get a reaction from her. Emily looked up calmly. She had been waiting for this moment. Her muscles, her leg, her mind, everything was ready. She didn't back down. Instead of responding with fear or anger, she looked Jason straight in the eyes and said in a firm but steady voice, "You think intimidating me will make you bigger? You're the one who seems small, Jason." A heavy silence fell. The entire class held its breath. Jason, surprised and taken aback, didn't know what to say. His usual words, full of mockery and arrogance, now seemed ridiculous. The other students began to murmur, some bursting into laughter at him. Emily continued, "Truly strong people don't put others down. They lift up those around them." This simple reminder of courage and maturity hurt Jason more than all his previous humiliations. He felt a wave of shame and helplessness wash over him. For the first time, he understood that cruelty would never bring him respect or power. After class, Marcus approached Emily and said, "You did more than just defend yourself. You showed everyone how to stand up for themselves, even in the most difficult times." Emily smiled, feeling a quiet pride growing within her. The confrontation was over, but the real victory wasn't against Jason. It was against the fear, humiliation, and self-doubt she had once felt. And for the first time, Emily knew she could face any obstacle with courage and dignity. In the weeks that followed, life at the high school gradually changed. Emily was no longer just the girl who had fallen on her crutches, she had become a symbol of courage and resilience. Students who had once been bullied by Jason or other classmates began to follow her example. Every day, Emily took the time to encourage those who were afraid to speak up or stand up for themselves. In the hallways, she would stop to help someone get back on their feet, or to remind those who doubted themselves that they could be stronger than they thought. Her positive influence spread slowly but surely. Jason, meanwhile, watched all this with a mixture of frustration and curiosity. He couldn't understand how a mere girl he had humiliated could inspire so much respect. His classmates, who once followed him without question, were now beginning to ignore him when he tried to demonstrate his superiority. One day, while Emily was talking to a group of younger classmates, Jason approached timidly. "Emily. I wanted to apologize for what I did," he said, his voice hesitant. Emily looked at him calmly. She sensed sincerity in his words. "It's good that you acknowledge it," she replied. "But real change doesn't come from apologies, it comes from actions. Show that you can be better, not just that you regret it." Jason nodded, impressed by her maturity. For the first time, he felt that strength lay not in intimidation, but in respect and courage. Emily smiled inwardly. She knew that her own transformation had begun with a fall on crutches, but she now saw that this fall had triggered something much greater. She had become a living example of courage, dignity, and perseverance for the entire high school. The high school was buzzing with excitement. The student council had decided to organize an anti-bullying awareness week promoting respect for everyone. Emily, thanks to her courage and example, was invited to speak in front of the entire school. When the day arrived, the room was full of students, teachers, and even a few parents who had come to attend the event. Emily stepped onto the stage, her crutches resting beside her, and took a deep breath. Her heart was pounding, but she knew she had to speak for all those who had been humiliated or bullied. "Hello everyone," she began, her clear voice echoing in the room. "I know what it feels like to be humiliated, to be afraid, to feel weak. But I want to tell you one thing, true strength isn't measured by size, strength, or the power you think you have. It's measured by how you get back up after you fall." The students listened attentively, captivated by her story and her courage. She recounted her experience, the fall on her crutches, the fear, the humiliation, and how, thanks to Marcus and her own determination, she had found the strength to stand up. "If I, a girl who fell on crutches, was able to get back up and inspire others, you can too," she concluded, a confident smile on her face. At the end of his speech, the room erupted in applause. The students rose to their feet, some moved to tears, others inspired to act. Even Jason, sitting at the back, felt a surge of emotion within him. He understood that his past actions had been wrong, and that true courage lay in respecting and protecting others, not in dominating them. Emily stepped down from the stage, and several students came to thank her. She felt she had done much more than give a speech. She had sown the seeds of lasting change in her high school. Her fall onto crutches was no longer a symbol of weakness, but the starting point of a strength that would transform the lives of many. After Emily's speech, something new happened at the school. The students began to act with more respect and support for one another. Bullies gradually lost their influence, and those who had previously been subjected to fear or ridicule finally dared to stand up for themselves. Jason, in particular, was beginning his own transformation. It was no longer just a matter of wounded pride. He saw the power of Emily's example and was starting to question his past actions. He approached her one day after school, his gaze more humble than ever. "Emily. I really want to change," he said sincerely. "I want to help instead of harm. Can you teach me how to do that?" Emily watched Jason for a moment. She remembered all the humiliations, all the falls, but she also saw the sincerity in his eyes. "You can start by listening to and respecting others," she replied softly. "Actions speak louder than words." Jason nodded and committed to this new path. In the following weeks, he actively participated in anti-bullying initiatives and began supporting those in need. His transformation impressed students and teachers alike, and Emily felt that his message of courage and resilience was truly spreading. Emily, for her part, continued to assert herself. She helped younger students, encouraged her classmates to stand up to difficulties, and worked on her own physical and mental strength. Each small victory, for her and for others, reinforced the idea that fear and weakness could be transformed into courage and leadership. The high school, once dominated by fear and intimidation, was gradually becoming a place where respect, mutual support, and determination guided the students. And it all started with a fall. and Emily's choice to get back up, stronger than ever. On the final day of Awareness Week, the high school held a ceremony to celebrate the students who had helped create a more respectful and supportive environment. Emily was invited to speak again, this time not only as a witness, but as a leader and role model for everyone. On the stage, her crutches resting beside her, she took a deep breath. The room was full of attentive students, teachers, and parents. They all knew her story, they all knew the path she had traveled since her fall. "I never thought falling could teach me so much," Emily began. "That fall, that moment of fear and humiliation, was the beginning of my strength. I learned that true power doesn't come from physical strength or intimidation, but from courage, perseverance, and respect for others." The students listened to her in silence, captivated by her words. Emily continued, "Each of us can get back up after a fall. Each of us can transform fear into strength, shame into determination. And each of us can inspire others to do the same." At the end of her speech, the room erupted in applause. The students stood, some with tears in their eyes, others with smiles of wonder. Jason, sitting in the front row, looked at Emily with respect and gratitude. He had changed, and he knew his past arrogance no longer had a place here. Emily stepped down from the platform and was surrounded by her classmates, some of whom she had helped, others simply inspired by her courage. Marcus, who had been by her side from the beginning, gave her an admiring thumbs up. For Emily, this victory wasn't just personal. It was a victory for everyone who had been bullied, humiliated, or scared. Her fall onto crutches had triggered a transformation that went far beyond herself, a lasting change in the school's culture. On that day, Emily understood a profound truth: sometimes you have to fall to discover yourself, and it only takes one act of courage to change a life, and even a world.